home type of setup. This TV was donated to us. This is actually my graduation present that my best friend gave me. And
lit.
yeah.
That's lit.
And then this is just like closets. And then this is living room. Legion gave us this shelf. Just a little smart TV right there. My name is Baugh. A lot of people call me Trey, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. However, I'm open to all respectfully. I am the executive director of UBUNTU Incorporated. It is an organization that I assisted in co-founding, and now, as I said previously, I serve as the executive director. I think the most important thing that UBUNTU does is work towards building community and building programs that work towards giving people economic stability or opportunities that they may not otherwise have, such as our transitional housing program. The program is important because, and I say this all the time, and I feel like a lot of us trans men and trans mans folks who do this work say this all the time, that we get sometimes calls or emails, we get communications that tell us, hey, I have this person and they need to be housed. And there is virtually there's like a sprinkling of things throughout the country, but it's virtually nothing. And so when we got this opportunity, one of the first things I said was, I want us to do a housing program, because when we get those calls, I want people to have like, okay, well, at least UBUNTU has this place and you can go there and figure out your next step, which is the name of the house. Everybody calls it UBUNTU House or the housing program, but literally the name of the program is Next Steps, because that's what we're trying to help people figure out is their next step. This house it's a beautiful house, as you'll see from the pictures, but when the guys come into the house, I want them to see like that you're welcome. I want them to feel at home. I want them to feel like it's a clean, safe space where they can just kind of breathe for a moment while they're in transition. And it's super important because finding someone who's willing to rent to a nonprofit organization is like finding a needle in a haystack. You know, we are grateful to Gilead, and we are, you know, we are doing our best to be good stewards of, you know, what we've been entrusted with. But one of the hardest things is that you cannot acquire property. So things like cars or homes or buildings, you cannot acquire those. You can rent them, but you can't own them with, sometimes the grant stipulates that. When people hear that you're a nonprofit organization and you want to rent a house for the purpose of a program, immediately is no. And so it really becomes very tedious in just finding that one in a million. But I will tell the story about the first UBUNTU house. So we had received the funding, we were over the moon, super excited. You know, our fiscal sponsor was like, hey, you have the funds now. And so we were like, okay, the housing program. And typically how everything operates in the world is money talks, bullshit walks. And so we knew that we had guaranteed funding, and so we would be able to procure a space. Of course, that's what we thought. Upon beginning our initial search, we had so many doors slammed in our face because the money didn't matter. It mattered that I was a Black young man. I said young, with decent credit, but not enough to where people were willing to be like, okay, again, I work nonprofit. So, you know, money definitely came into play. Now there's this thing, and I feel like it's nationwide, but I've mostly seen it in Atlanta, and it's like, well, you need to make 3 times the rent. And I'm like, okay, well, Derek doesn't make 3 times the rent, but UBUNTU has the funds to guarantee the money. Can we draw up a such and such agreement? No, slam the door. Most recently, someone that I know has been trying to find affordable housing. And because of different things like credit and age and all this and that, it's like, okay, well, you can have a cosigner. So this space is super important because it's beautiful, it's nice, and it's just for trans men. And that is a few of the things that makes it unique. And that there's a black trans man sitting at the helm of it. Our housing monitor is black. Like it's really important because Ubuntu is an organization that prioritizes Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And so to see yourself represented and to be able to feel safe in a clean and safe space is like, it's huge. Atlanta, Atlanta is, I don't want to say chocolate city because that's Chicago, right? But, Atlanta is blackity black, just today, it's historic the day we're doing this interview. We will now have a black woman with sister locks who had parents to graduate from Howard University, whose name is Katanji, to sit on the Supreme Court. It's so huge. Like, representation matters. The South, we have some of the most prominent leaders. We have Tony Michelle Williams, we have Tori Cooper, we have Sebastian Smith, we have Q Bell, we have so many people here. And so to have a program like this only makes sense. When I think about history, the first person that pops up in my mind is like Miss Didi. Who has done so much for Black trans women and therefore trans people as a whole. I used to have this boss, her name was Amanda Hollowell, and she would say that when you lift up a Black trans woman, no, she said when you lift up a Black woman, you lift up her entire community, because Black women always take it and put it back into the community. And I think the same is true for Black trans women, right? And so by doing the historic things that Miss Didi has, like, leading marches and assisting in moving legislation and just showing up and being present when it wasn't popular to be Black and trans, like, those things matter. We have Tracy McDaniel here. I mentioned Tori Cooper, Tony Michelle, and I mentioned Tony Michelle. I think it's so important that we say her name, and that not that she's still with us, but it's so important that we say her name and lift it up in space. And anything happens to anybody, SNAPCO, which is the Solutions Not Punishments Collaborative, is who you call to turn the tables. And so I think it's important that we lift their name up in spaces even when we can. And with SNAPCO, we also have Dean Steed, a brilliant Black trans man. So, there's a lot of Black trans historic making brilliance here in the South. My gratitude, first of all, to the community for entrusting us with this is humongous. Second of all, for Gilead and assisting us in making it happen. It's huge, and so at the top of our priority list is community trust and being a good steward of, the resources that we are entrusted with. And that we just want as many people to know as possible that we are here. We have this service that we are willing to provide for people. And if there's anything that we can ever do to assist, we're open and we're willing. Just shoot us a message via our website, and we'll do our best to get to you. And even if there's something that it's not a resource that we provide, or something that is probably 9 times out of 10, we know someone who does that thing. Housing is such a need. Like, the minimum rent right now in Atlanta is something like $2,000. And so our minimum wage is still $7.25. So unemployment and underemployment continues to be an issue for Black trans people. People who are forced to do survival sex work, housing tends to still be an issue. So programs like this are super, super important. And so, again, we just want to continue to let people know that we're here. We just want to get the word out. And I want to go back for a second to talking about survival sex work, and add that sex work is work, and add to that we don't want community members. We know community members that are falling into situations of exploitation. Kind of like, well, yeah, you can stay here if you do X, Y, and Z sexual favor for me. And, that's one of the reasons why this program exists. We don't ever want anybody to feel like they have to do that so they can have somewhere to lay their head. We're here this program is for trans men, and there are a few people doing different things in the city for trans women, like housing programs. The Trans Housing Coalition, which is founded or co-founded by Jesse Pratt Lopez. SNAPCO moves resources to people. Trans Housing Atlanta program, A Vision for Hope. These are all people that provide housing resources for people. Our program is specific for trans men, but there are other things going on in the city. So again, if you need something, please reach out and we can refer you. I will say that I think providing a space like this, just knowing that an organization exists like this is really important for our upcoming trans youth. For me, I've been transitioning something like 7-ish years, maybe more, maybe less. And that was one of the first things I looked for, was a group of people to relate to, or just people who look like me. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find like an empowerment group or a support group to go to talk to guys like me. I couldn't find, people who had periodic outings and things like that where we could just go and it could be casual and not structured. And so Ubuntu now provides those things. We operate by the "if you build it, they will come" model. What we ended up finding largely is that there were a lot of people in the same situation who didn't have access to these resources. Spousal support, that's a huge resource. We provide groups for spouses of trans men, the spouses of trans women. We have a group for trans women, lots of different things, because when you transition, your spouse and your family transitions with you, and sometimes what you need is a group of people to support you through that. And the support might come through shared experiences, but you don't know that if you never get to be in the same room with them, because nobody curates that space for you. And so we made it our business to do just that, and we've continued to, and we have some really exciting things coming in the future. So just follow us on social media at symbol Ubuntu Inc. on Instagram, and we're Ubuntu Incorporated on Facebook. And it's something that Sebastian Smith said to me, and it really kept me hanging on even in my darkest moments, which is greater is later. And that stands on its own. Greater is later. Your people are coming. Your people are coming. It's just an honor to be entrusted. And it's not something that I take lightly. And just thank you.